What's up everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, I'm super proud and excited to check out the ARC on-ear while it goes in-ear. The ARC on-ear is IK Multimedia's newest pro audio innovation built to bring the innovative ARC technology into a small form factor ready for headphone use. Using the proprietary headphone frequency correction models, you'll make sure to get full control over your mix on whatever headphone you are using. The latest version, 1.5 update, now boasts over 50 in-ear monitor headphone profiles, bringing the entire on-ear system actually in-ear. No plugin needed, no DAW session required, just your headphone profile, your presets, and a clean monitoring path. In addition to the USB-C digital input, a 3.5mm analog input, and a full-size 6.3mm headphone output, the ARC on-ear features a rechargeable battery with up to 4 hours of use, making the ARC technology more portable than ever before. Small footprint, simple controls, and a more consistent way to check your headphones wherever you're working. I'm not gonna lie to you, when I read the email from IK Multimedia asking if they wanted to collaborate with me on the ARC on-ear, I got really excited. The reason for that was I watched all the reviews back when the ARC on-ear was actually released, and I was really intrigued by the concept behind it, because I'm a huge fan of the ARC Studio or the ARC X, which they have released recently or updated recently, based on the ARC Studio ARC 4 system, and I actually got it over here since 2 years or so, and I'm using it and enjoying it every single day. For those of you wondering what ARC is all about, ARC is IK Multimedia's product family, which is catered towards frequency response calibration of your listening environment. So if you have a studio environment or such a listening environment like I have, I got over here my Kali studio monitors, and you want to compensate a little bit frequency response wise for the room in which you are, because you do not have the possibility to set up like a perfect listening environment, then ARC Studio has you covered, because there you can really measure the frequency response of the room with such a measurement microphone over here. I'm gonna put that a little bit closer to the camera. And by using that microphone together with the software, you're gonna get a really good frequency response calibration, which then tries to mitigate all the errors which you have in your room. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And I will say, absolutely unsponsored, and just as a customer, using the ARC Studio together with some few tweaks over here, like having a few sound panels, making sure that my monitor stands are a little bit heavier, we're filling them with sand, and also using the isoacoustic modules to place the speakers on top of them. All of these things combined absolutely massively changed how I listen to music over here in this room. Everything is much clearer, much more transparent, and ARC Studio is an absolute essential part of this whole room improvement. But this video is not about ARC Studio, this video is about ARC on-ear. And what this now does, especially in conjunction with the firmware update which has been released today, this actually massively improves your listening experience while using headphones. And what this unit does in a nutshell is, via the ARC on-ear hardware together with the corresponding ARC on-ear software, allows for frequency response calibration, listening environment correction based on the headphone model which you have. So that's a really cool feature. It not only allows you to use, like an internal DSP equalizer, which you then can set up, but you can actually load different profiles of your headphone models which you have at home, and then have basically a target frequency response matching that headphone model being loaded into the DSP. And that's really cool, and helps to kind of mitigate any bias which you're getting by using a specific headphone. For example, the Beyerdynamic DT707 Pro for me are very mid-scooped. I mean, if you know that characteristic of the headphone, you can maybe try to counter-argue it, but this will eventually fool you. It's much better to have a very neutral target frequency response overall, and the ARC on-ear is then helping in correcting the frequency response of these bad boys over here. And while the ARC on-ear possesses that super powerful feature of loading in the headphone models and correcting based on what headphone model you have, the newest firmware update, which they just released today, also allows you to add in, I think, over 50 different in-ear models into the ARC on-ear. And you might now wondering why I'm dangling this in-ear bud in front of me like a pendulum, and why the hell is it only a single earbud? There's a very easy answer to that. I am hearing impaired on my left ear. My left ear basically hears nothing. I only hear stuff on my right ear. And there's one feature in the Arc on ear which alleviates the pain associated with that one, which I'm really, really excited about. So now that we got the story time behind us, let's actually check out what the software looks like, how we set things up, and hopefully I'm trying my best to give you kind of an impression on what this actually does. I now got the Arc on ear software loaded up over here. You can see in the bottom corner of the Arc on ear hardware, and I over here got a Reaper session as well, where I have everything routed on the table. I'm gonna show a picture right now so that you can see, so that we at least can listen to how these calibration setups sound in real life, or in real time. Now, note that because of the way this is set up, this is not really matching impedance-wise and so on and so forth, how it would be when you are listening to the Arc on ear via headphones. You got to be aware of that this is not representative of what you will actually hear through the unit. This is just supposed to give you an inkling on the vast, options which you have in the plugin. And in regards of the studio simulation and the stereo field perception, I hope that I can give you a little bit of an insight on what this stuff can do and why I'm such a fan of it. Let's first dive into the first portion of the software before we then check the hardware and the buttons which it all provides. And that then also goes hand in hand with what is changing on the Arc on ear software. Furthermore, the first section, we're gonna check out here the frequency response section. And over here you can see, obviously, you got a frequency response showing the decibel numbers and the frequencies. And over here you got 3 different dots which represent EQ bands, which you can set up respectively to your own personal liking without any sort of reference calibration. So this is just by ear. If you, for example, just think, hey, wait a minute, I think that this headphone is a little bit mid-scooped, then you can kind of counter that with a little bit more mids in the respective frequency which you want to set. If you want to have the Q a little bit steeper, you can set that up as well. I believe that 3 is the maximum number, and that is already a very strong spiky Q. So in most cases, you want to keep it at 1.76 or 1.76, or keep it at 1 around that ballpark. And if you find that your headphones are a little bit mid-heavy, same thing over here, you can set the bell respectively. By double-clicking, you are resetting the EQ frequency band. The 1 and 3 EQ frequency bands are basically shelves for the high end and the top end. Also over here, you can set the Q to your liking. And you can see that you're getting a very strong Q over here. Also 3 as I believe the maximum number. But again, by double clicking, you are reversing to that. So if you have a very spiky headphone, that is something which I could actually see happening with some in-ear monitoring. Then you can set a slight trim to the high end. Same with a lack of boost, which is sometimes an issue on in-ear monitoring. Then you can actually boost that over here and then adjust the frequencies to your personal preferences. Very cool stuff already. Alone, this is a very nice addition to this feature set. And if you're sick and tired of seeing the frequency response, you can always move to space over here, and you got this wonderful picture over here showcasing your dream recording desk. Let me move over to the Reaper project over here. I'm gonna reset the frequency response. Then moving over to this project where I got a song of my band Tempest. So it's gonna be heavy metal, it's gonna be loud, it's gonna be noisy. So I'm just gonna play along and then play around with the EQ just to showcase how drastically you can change the tone of it. Let's move to the other correction functions over here, namely the headphone model and the calibration at first, and then we move through the rest. So on the headphone model, I'm going to choose a different preset because I got that already selected. You can see that the biodynamic DT770 Pro 80 ohms is selected. That's exactly the headphone which I currently got in my hands over here. So if you look at that, hopefully you can see that. That's the headphone, which we got now the frequency response correction curve loaded in, but you can choose a lot of different headphones, as you can see over here. And by just browsing through that, you can also see that there are quite some hefty additions in regard to the in-ear section. So we got a lot of classic in-ear monitors, which are available, like the Shure SE range, everything from the SE 112 up to the SE 846 Gen 2. Which is a little bit of a pity, is that they do not have the Gen 1 loaded from the 846 model, because that's the one which I got over here as well. And unfortunately, the Gen 2 frequency response curve does not really work well with the Gen 1, as it should be, because they are different headphones. I do have the SE 53.5 or 535, whatever you want to call it, and that's the one which only has the single earbud, and that one works really well. So when I choose that one, that's awesome. That's working fantastically. I think they work together with Thomann to get their hands on a lot of different earbuds and earphones. And the cool thing is that they're not only catering towards the high-end market, but they're also going for some of the cheaper brands like Superlux. I have this HD 681 Evo, which is an amazing sounding, half open, I believe, headphone for, I think, 36 euros or something. Sounds absolutely amazing for the price point. And they also have profiles from that one as well. And they do work really well. But let's leave it with the DT707. And let me go ahead and play music via Reaper and just play with the presets. I'm gonna go ahead, just click on play, and then see what happens when we choose different presets. Once again, a very strong difference, which we already can hear. Now, in conjunction with the headphone model, we got this calibration tool where we can set things up a little bit warmer. So you can see that there's kind of a tilt of the entire frequency response, or we can set this a little bit brighter where there's another tilt of the top end going on. So that frequency correction model can be tilted left and right depending on how you want it to be set up. If you want it to be set flat, then of course we double click on the flat and then it goes back to the setup. Phase align aligns the phase as it says. It will give you a little bit more of a natural and a punchier tone. However, it's going to add, I think, around about 21 milliseconds of latency. Just be aware of that one. So I'm going to play the song again and just play around with the knob. Now that already heavily shifted the tone and the perception of sound from this profile over here. Really cool feature. I like that a lot. Let's move over to the studio simulation and then check out that, because that's the thing which really got me excited for the Arc on Ear, because this is the thing which helps me a little bit with my one-sided deafness. What this does is that the studio simulation tries to emulate you being in a room with your speakers and listening to them. How this works is that the stereo perception is a little bit, like spread from left to right and right to left, depending on how you set the width. Now, of course, you could go full-blown mono, but then you always have the issue that you have strong cancellations because everything is dead center in the mono. And if you have a left pan and right pan of the guitars, they will sound really weak. With the studio simulation and setting up the width, you can mitigate that a little bit to a degree where you are having the perfect compromise between getting that room simulation thing going on, but without canceling everything onto mono. So that's really helpful, especially for me being hearing impaired on one ear. So I'm going to move over to a section where actually only one guitar is playing and then the other one is coming in. So that way you can listen to left and right and hear what I'm actually so excited about. That makes me really, really excited for the Arc on Ear. I mean, maybe it's very hard for you to kind of feel what I'm feeling right now. You know, like having the possibility to kind of mitigate and alleviate that issue, which I always had, makes me really, really emotional. And yeah, I'm super happy about this feature over here. And I would love to have now a left-right swap as well, so that I have full control over everything, but I'm taking gladly whatever I can. By clicking on one of the speakers, you are hearing actually the only left or right channel, so that way you can actually make a better judgment on how they're blending in. So I guess that you're already kind of getting the gist over here. Very powerful feature. This is perhaps my personal favorite feature of the entire Arc on Ear hardware and software bundle. Let's move over to the virtual speakers because they kind of blend into the studio simulation. So once you got your studio simulation set, I'm going to set it now for the non-deaf persons back to 100% so that you have an evenly spread out stereo perception field, and set up the virtual speakers. So we're gonna run back in the middle of the track, just play a little bit along. And yeah, the virtual speakers basically allow you to choose different speakers, for example, like a portable Bluetooth speaker, smartphone, TV, and other classics in regards to hi-fi and monitor. And then that frequency response correction is also added on top. Let's get to the last segment over here, and that's the global settings. Very quickly, here you can set up the dim attenuation between -10 and -40 dB, the LED brightness, the auto standby time of the unit itself, and then the user trim, if it's supposed to follow the calibration, so that EQ which you can set up if that's only supposed to be active when calibration is set on, or if that's an always on function so that you can just do your own assignments. I like to keep it on an always on function. And then we have other stuff like the export configuration, import configuration, firmware recovery, and so on and so forth. Now, what I want to do as a last step is I'm going to play again the song, and I'm just going to run through all of the presets over here. Most of them are going to be based on the DT770 Pro, but the last one is actually based on these over here. And you're going to hear how vastly different the frequency calibration sounds when you're choosing different headphones. Let's wrap up this video with my final thoughts and conclusions on the Arc on Ear system. At first, my thought was, wow, IK Multimedia wants to collaborate with me. I'm super excited. Let's go. Second thought was, okay, I'm one-sided deaf person. I rarely use headphones in my normal, regular workflow. I do use them occasionally when I'm on vacation and stuff like that, tracking guitars. How can I contribute to this discussion? But I'm very glad that I took the plunge, because the studio simulation works out a lot of these issues for me, or at least alleviates the chores which are attached to that one. And yeah, overall, this is a very good proposition. It costs around about 200 to 250 euros, but it has so much to feature, and the fact that it's battery powered, it's independent from the software hub being connected all the time, so you just load the presets and then you can travel with that one. This makes it, personally for me, very much invaluable very cool stuff which they packed into this. For the sake of objectivity, things which I would like to see, things which I would criticize would be, I would like to have more EQ bands. Of course, having one EQ band in the middle is nice to have, but I think they could add definitely one or more EQ points. Next thing is, I would love to see them upgrade their list even further, and I do believe that's going to happen, because as I said before, my Shure SE 846 Gen 1 do not really work with any of the profiles over there, so I would have to manually set up a profile which, you know, like caters towards my taste, instead of having like a full-scale frequency response calibration thing going on. That's a little bit of a pity that they didn't have that added in. They do have the Gen 2, however, so I'm hoping that as time passes by, other models coming in, and especially having the SE535 and that working very well, showed me that the concept using in-ear monitors with this thing does work. So there is some merit to it. Very curious what the future will bring. The last feature which I would love to see at some point is to have an FN assignable feature which has a left-right swap. I hope that that's something which is very simple to implement and which they just haven't thought about yet and can then add in another firmware update. That would be excellent. Here the left channel, here the right channel, set on the studio simulator, see a little bit how they blend in, again swap left and right. That would massively help me out in working with headphones. So hoping that all of that stuff might be considered. Some of the feedback I already gave to the product management, but overall, as I said before, full recommendation from my side. I think this is a very good unit, and I'm super grateful again to IK Multimedia for sending this out. But I'm even more grateful to all of you folks out there watching my videos. If you like what you've seen over here, then go ahead, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment on if you have one of these, how you find it, and so on and so forth. Really curious to hear your thoughts on this one. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. See you hopefully in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.